Now let's talk about life expectancy and the implications. As recently as 1800, life expectancy at birth in America was only 35 years, and that was typical for developed countries. English philosopher Thomas Hobbes described life in 1800 as poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In 1880, average life expectancy increased to 39.4 years, and then rapidly increased to 78.9 by 2019. Americans currently have a life expectancy of 78.7 years. Overall, on average, women in the United States can expect to live 81.2 years. Men can expect to live 76.2 years. And of course, that's just average age. The verification and tracking of supercentenarians has only taken place in recent history, with the longest known living human in France, who lived to be 122 years old. So it's reasonable to assume that if you retire at, say, age 60, you could have 15, 20, 25, 30, even 40 more productive years to live. The big question is, how will you live? Will you live a fulfilled life? How will you spend those years to make the most of your time? Experts say that COVID-19 represents a temporary setback to life expectancy in America. The speed of pharmaceutical and biomedical innovation is expected to keep pace with the evolution of vector-borne diseases. Nobel laureate Angus Deaton explains in his book, The Great Escape: Health, Wealth, and the Origins of Inequality, that the dramatic increases in longevity stem from public health and medical improvements, improved diet, water, sanitation, control of infectious diseases, and greater access to education and pharmaceuticals. Researchers are making rapid progress on a longevity gene and clues to reversing aging in humans. Female life expectancy is already approaching 90 in East Asia. Longevity is expected to rise higher than 93 years by 2050 in the United States. Now it feels routine to see articles about supercentenarians like Kane Tanaka. On January 1st, she turned 119, extending her record as the world's oldest living person for another year. The oldest verified man ever lived to the age of over 116 years. It's estimated that there are between 150 and 600 living people who have already achieved the age of 110. So what's my point about recounting all of this about supercentenarians and living longer? Well, there are a lot of implications. For the purposes of this course, you might have a lot of productive years ahead. So planning to thrive and cultivate well-being throughout all of those potential decades is the main point. We need to do a lot more planning and thinking about making life as full and rich as possible. There are a lot of other interesting implications too. Working life might expand. It was once atypical for somebody to work well beyond their 60s. Now, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, men and women aged 75 and older are projected to be the fastest growing portion of the U.S. labor force. There will continue to be a greater need for caregivers. The older the population gets, the more needs there are. Physical disabilities and cognitive decline require caregivers. In the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 3.4 million workers provide paid home care. The National Alliance for Caregiving reports that nearly 53 million Americans provide unpaid care to adults with a disability or illness. Care for our oldest adults requires over 4 times the number of teachers in public K-12 schools providing education for our youngest children. So, an increase in an aged population puts a strain on caregiving resources. And of course, there are upsides. Longer lives represent opportunity, time for family and community, for learning, adventure, and exploration, for giving back to our families, communities, and workplaces. The big compelling question is how to use that time. What policies need to be updated to ensure that these extra years can be beneficial to all generations? When life expectancy was closer to 45, one set of policies might have made sense. When life expectancy is closer to 90, social systems, norms, institutions all need to be reimagined. For example, how does family life change when you have 4 generations overlapping and interacting? How do we rethink lifelong learning? How can organizations nurture multi-generational teams? Ezekiel Emanuel talked about the implications of a longer lifespan in a polarizing and thought-provoking article titled Why I Hope to Die at 75, which is included in your workbook. He takes a pragmatic and some say pessimistic view of the implications of a longer lifespan, making the argument that society and families would be better off if nature takes its course swiftly and promptly. He quotes data from a survey conducted by Eileen Crimmins and says that over the past 50 years, healthcare hasn't slowed the aging process so much as it has slowed the dying process. He frankly expresses his view that we may live longer than our parents, but are likely to be more incapacitated, which to him is not a desirable outcome. What we would all wish for is to continue to be vibrant, creative, active, engaged, productive, innovative, fit, and fulfilled throughout our whole life, including the very last years, making real contributions in mentoring and giving back. My husband and I have discussed this article so many times, and I do urge you to read it and let me know your thoughts. The point Emanuel is making is to share his views on what makes up a good life and to provoke us to think about how we want to live as we grow older, which is what I want for this course. The provocative headline made more people read it and consider the implications. I appreciate the article because I think it sets the stage for what I want you to consider as you take the rest of this course. As you plan to thrive in this phase of life, what steps can you take now to ensure that you will live life at your best? As you make your way through the remaining modules of the course, we'll be talking about creativity, being at your best in mind, body, and spirit, finding your unique ways to give back and find real fulfillment through your whole life, including the last years.